Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. All right, this is where I pretend like I can see everybody's amazing faces, and I'm walking on stage, and we have that awesome amp music. Everybody is excited. Hi, I am Jenny with VWS. Is this your first VWS event? I see lots of applause coming through. Okay, so for those of you that this is your first event, give us a thumbs up. And if you're a returning attendee, give us a heart. Let's see. All right, you are in for a treat, everyone. We have an amazing event today. I am so excited. We have a lot of first timers here, which means that we are bringing you into the VWS community and we are going to build a kinder, more sustainable world together. So today's conversation is going to talk about how we can get more women in positions of leadership in the plant-based space and beyond. Really exciting conversation because this is a really fast-growing industry. It's one of the fastest growing industries in the world right now, a 9.5% cumulative annual growth rate, just skyrocketing. And we want to make sure that we are getting women into positions of leadership, that we are getting women into executive roles. So we have three amazing executives that are going to be coming on to talk to us today about their journeys. Before that, I'm going to do a quick run of show and go through a little bit of housekeeping with you. So first off, today's conversation is going to be a panel conversation followed by live interactive networking. What do I mean by that? I mean that you are literally going to be able to flip on your camera and mic, just like I'm doing right now, and meet with attendees all around the world. Maybe you'll meet your next employer. Maybe you'll meet your next mentor. Maybe you'll meet your next best friend. I'm not sure. We had over 1,400 networking connections at our last VWS event in February. So it's going to be very exciting to see what comes out of today's conversation. Before I get to all of our housekeeping, I want to give a huge thank you to Impossible Foods for making today's conversation happen. We are so thankful that we have organizations and companies that are looking to build a diverse and equitable future for this industry. So I'm very excited about what's to come. So first and foremost, I want everybody grab your phone. Does everybody grab their phone? You guys can see this is my little attachment I use so that when I'm out on the ocean, I don't drop my phone into the water like last year. So please follow Vegan Women Summit. I want everybody to jump on here. That's where we are going to be sharing most of today's updates. We'll also be on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So we'd love to see you there. We also have a private group, the VWS Pathfinders group, where we take all these conversations out of today's event into our LinkedIn group. So we'd love to have you request to join. Lastly, this is a recorded conversation. So if you weren't able to make it live, or you have a friend that really wanted to make it, but maybe one of their meetings got put on their schedule today, don't worry, we will be sharing out this entire conversation afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Venue. That's the platform you're on right now so that you know how to use it. So first off, you'll see up in the top right corner, it'll either say your initials or it'll have a photo. That's where you can go update your bio. We really want to make sure that you go in there and update your bio. Why? Because down below, you can see on the audience row, you can see every single person that's here in the room. So you'll be able to see their name, their headline, their pronouns, and all the different social media handles that they have so that you can connect with them afterwards. In particular, LinkedIn tends to get real fired up in our events. Lots of connections are made. So we want to make sure that you have your profile updated right now. So if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, you're just hopping on. Perhaps you're one of our latecomers. We had a lot of Eventbrite registrations going on. I think my phone is about to blow up from how many tickets just got registered in the last 5 minutes. Please make sure you update your bio before we get to networking. Okay, we are going to have a questions tab. So you'll see a question mark to your right on the software. So if you go to that questions tab, you can put your questions in throughout today's conversation. We will get to them at the end of the moderated chat. But as we're talking, please feel free to drop them in so that we have lots of questions to get to at the end. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions for our speakers. We'll also be sharing information about each of the speakers as we are talking about them so you can learn more about their amazing work. And lastly, troubleshooting. So if you are having any problems with today's software, you know what the easiest thing to do is? It's the obvious one. Just refresh. So just try refreshing your browser. That typically will solve most problems. The other most common problem that you might be experiencing is you might be on the wrong browser. The best browser that you could be using right now is Google Chrome. So please make sure that you're using Google Chrome so that you have the best experience possible. All right. Well, on that last note of possible, perhaps we should get to women doing the impossible. Come on. This is where I should get a little bit of applause. Come on. Some laughs in the room? Okay. So I am very, very excited to bring up our three speakers. Let's welcome to the stage Rachel Conrad, our Chief Communications Officer of Impossible Foods, followed by Conrad, who is our Chief Marketing Officer at Nature's Find, and Debbie Sebastian, Chief Financial Officer at Upfield Americas. Hey, ladies.
Hi.
How's it going?
Hi, everyone.
How amped are you? The room is bustling. How exciting is this? I'm so excited to have everybody here. I don't think I've ever seen a plant-based executives conversation like this before. Have any of you taken part in anything like this?
Mm-mm.
Definitely not. This is a first.
Okay, well, it won't be a last. All right, so before we get started with the conversation, I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit to the audience, how you got into your role, and a little bit about what your company does. We've got a really cool range of companies up today. Rachel, why don't we start with you?
Great. First of all, it's great to be here. As I mentioned to Jenny, I'm on vacation this week, so I literally have already done 4 runs down the mountain skiing. It's been great, and I'm even more amped to be here than going downhill at high speed. So super exciting. My name is Rachel Conrad. I work for Impossible Foods, and we are solving the biggest, worst, most existential threats facing the planet, both global warming and biodiversity collapse. And we're doing that by transforming the food system and making it sustainable for once and for all, and eliminating the need for animals in the food system. I've been here about 5 years. It's been incredible. Best job I've ever had. We are hiring absolutely insane pace. So please, I'm going to make this plug again. Look at impossiblefoods.com. Check out our job descriptions. We got a lot of openings. I mean, everything from interns on the communications team all the way through to senior executive roles. So please check it out. And I'll talk more to people later throughout the event and at the networking session. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, if anybody's applying to one of those roles, you know where you can say you're referred from, the Women Doing the Impossible event. All right, Debbie.
You should get a referral bonus, by the way. You should talk to Bindu about that.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally on it. I'm halfway into texting her. Women got to get paid, y'all. Debbie, welcome. Okay, so I don't think you're in Tahoe right now.
No, not in Tahoe, but it is cold in the room that I am, so I put a jacket on. But no, here in New Jersey, getting a little bit of warmth weather started here, but super excited to be here. Really, this is kind of a first for me, and really excited to be around the room with plant-based, leaders. Especially talking to every one of you. A little bit about myself. So I am CFO of Upfield Americas. We are a company that's about 3 years old, but brands that you probably would recognize, Country Crock, Flora, I Can't Believe It's Not Butter. We are the number one plant-based spreads, cheese, BioLife, etc. So hopefully those names ring a bell. Have been with the company about 3 years, but it was a spin-off from Unilever, which is another big company, and have been in finance, for about 20 years now. So again, really excited to be here, excited to talk to all of you, and look forward to the questions.
Awesome. We're excited to have you. And Karuna, where are you joining us from? We're all across the country, aren't we?
We are. I'm joining from Chicago, where it's actually pretty nice weather today, so I can't complain. Usually all we do is complain about the weather in Chicago, so I'm really excited to to join this amazing panel. So I'm Karuna Rawal. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Nature's Find. And, we're not as well known as my other two panelists here, but we are up and coming. We are in the alternate protein space. And actually, I joined the company about 18 months ago. And we are helping to bring a new to the world alternative protein that was originally discovered in Yellowstone National Park to market. So it's a pretty fun origin story I get to tell as a brand marketer, which has been really, really fun. And we're here in Chicago in the old stockyards in the meatpacking district. So kind of bringing new protein to the home of what used to be old protein and doing it in a way that's environmentally sustainable, nutritious, and delicious. So really excited to meet other great women who are doing the impossible and really hoping to follow in their footsteps. So thank you for having me.
All right. Of course, you grabbed onto our tagline, the CMO up here. She's got the marketing down packed. So as you can see, everybody, we have incredible leaders that are joining from completely different departments. We've got communications, we've got finance, we've got marketing. So I think what's going to be so fascinating about today's conversation is all three of you probably have a very different story of how you got into your roles. These are all very different industries, yet you've all aligned in these mission-driven careers. I'd love to talk a little bit more about how you got into your role. Perhaps, Karuna, we'll start with you. We'll do reverse order. What did that path look like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think if you had said to me 5 years ago that this is what I would be doing, I would have been I would have said there's no way. So my story, I think, is a little bit of a traditional path with sort of, digression on the road less traveled. So I started my career actually at P&G in CPG marketing and I learned traditional brand management. And then when I relocated to Chicago, ended up doing a sales and retail related role, which really helped me understand the sales side of marketing. But interestingly, that my career started in food and beverage at P&G. They don't have those brands anymore, but I started my career with well-known brands like Folgers and Duncan Hines and Jif peanut butter back in the day. And then as I transitioned into more of a retail marketing role, really helping the company set up their shopper marketing practice. I was one of the first shopper marketers for P&G. And then went on from there to do consulting. Again, what kept drawing me was food and beverage innovation. So I did a lot of work in that space, which eventually actually led me to Leo Burnett, which was, again, a turn I wasn't planning to make, but there was an amazing opportunity to do some creative work as a marketer. You get to learn sort of the left brain side of marketing. And I was really interested in also rounding out and learning the right brain side of marketing. And at Leo, ended up working on a lot of food and beverage companies as clients, but also had the amazing opportunity to work on the Always Like a Girl campaign as the strategist. So that was a pretty phenomenal highlight of my time at the agency, which is actually what led me, interestingly, to this role. But that was something that our CEO had been fascinated with that campaign. And, as he was in the process of looking for a chief marketing officer, my name popped up, but I was actually looking at some very more traditional opportunities. And then I got this call about, something that really sounded like science fiction when I first heard it. But the more I learned, the more excited I got. And really was, I think, what Rachel was alluding to, an opportunity to come in and really make a difference, to bring together my own values and purpose together with a company that was really trying to do something remarkable in innovating in the food system. I'm a lifelong vegetarian, so it really met up with my own values. And so it was a great chance to come in and really build a brand from a blank sheet of paper. So that's kind of how I got here.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think that's probably very encouraging for folks that are in agencies or maybe are in kind of like more like a freelance role, knowing that there is a path into leadership too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Debbie, what about you? What does your path look like?
Yeah, so my path, I don't think is as similar as what we hear now, but I started at Unilever and had been there basically off and on for 18 years, doing various different roles, as I said, in finance. I did a bit of sales, didn't jump into marketing, but as some people say, you don't look like the typical CFO, and I'm actually proud of that, to be honest. So in terms of that, I think what happened then is, be Upfield or Unilever decided to sell off a category, and basically the head of that finance role was open. And it's interesting. I always say right place, right time usually fits for a lot of these things. You're at the right place at the right time. But I also think right mindset at the same time. So just a bit of context is I had my second child, and I was really thinking about what my passions are. And obviously when you have kids, you think about, benefits, right? And, things that are good for the environment, good for you, etc. When this opened up, that's the proposition, right? It's all about plant-based lifestyle, and it's about being better for the planet and being better for your health. And then it was an opportunity to lead a team, a big, large team. And so right mindset, I took it, right? And I took a bet on myself, knowing that it was going to be, a big challenge. But I was looking forward to it. After years at Unilever, and really feeling like a family and home, I was kind of ready for a change, a bit of a change in pace. And as Karuna said, a step change in pace, and we'll talk about that later. But I think for me, it was all about, the right opportunity and that it lent itself, and it was fitting where I wanted to go to next. And so Upfield, it's been basically carved out from about 3 years ago. We're back standing on our own 2 feet now, about a year. And haven't looked back since. And it's been a crazy whirlwind of a journey. We've had our twists and turns as what we call a 100-year-old startup. But I mean, again, lots of learning, lots of things that I think entrepreneurs and investors and different things, different experience, end-to-end touch points, getting your sleeves rolled up and dirty, and getting yourselves involved in a lot of things. So again, great opportunity.
That's amazing. I love the, having the right mindset. I think that one of the best things I learned is always be ready. Just always be ready for any opportunity. People say, I'm very lucky. No, these opportunities come, and if you're ready to take them, that's how you take hold, right?
Right.
Awesome. All right, Rachel. Okay. Last but not least, totally different story. I have a feeling coming. So what has your story been like? Yeah.
Yeah, super different. I love how you can get to where you are by many, many roads, right? I mean, I basically became an environmentalist in about 1990. I read an article called What's Wrong with Plastic Trees? And it was so fascinating and provocative to me, this notion that we are embarking on a trajectory where we can just kind of replace nature with plastic junk versions of it, and we'll be maybe fine. Maybe that's all we need. It was so horrific to me. And I was born and raised in Detroit. I'm definitely very interested and student of the auto industry, both as a journalist and then in the industry. I really spent about 15 years trying to advance the switch to sustainable, zero emission kind of energy system, especially for cars. I worked both for Elon Musk at Tesla and Carlos Ghosn at Renault Nissan. It was fascinating, and I thought I was doing great work, really trying to make sure that the auto industry went into a sustainable trajectory, and we could maybe eliminate our addiction to fossil fuels. And speaking of just being open to whatever the universe brings to you, I was literally with Carlos Ghosn at COP21, the big conference in a United Nations conference. And at the time, the largest environmental conference in the world. It was in Paris, France, where I was living. And during the event, I happened to meet this guy named Pat Brown, who was CEO at a company that at the time was still in stealth mode, didn't have a product on the market. And he basically said, you've gone into no offense, but you've gone into the wrong industry. If you really want to make an impact, a positive contribution in the world, you need to go into the food system, because the food system has by far the biggest negative environmental impact on our planet. It is what is caused and accelerating our late stage extinction crisis, killing off millions of species for the sake of just a few, including cows and a couple of other species. And that's what you need to spend your resources, your intellect, your capital on. And it was almost like I went into this sort of mid-career crisis, moved my family 6,000 miles away to Silicon Valley, and decided that, in fact, he was right. And here I am today. So I've been with the company for about 5 years. Again, it goes to your point, Jenny. It's not about luck. I've worked my tail off in every job, but it is about being open to opportunities that you might not be expecting at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody that's here, as you can see, we have 3 different women that had a completely different path. And I think that's one of the things that's so important about today's conversation and some of the programming that we're doing around this is there's so many ways to get into the space, and there's so many opportunities to get into the space. So I'm curious for all of you up here, would you ever consider not being in the food space, or is this where your heart lies? Any idea? I think everybody is unequivocally set on staying in the space. Okay, so let's get into representation in this industry. So all of you that have been in the industry, so Rachel for 5 years, and Debbie for the last 3, I guess technically in the plant-based space, and Karuna, you've been doing food and bev for quite some time. Mm-hmm. Do you see any change for women's leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I can take it. You know what? It's what I've seen is going into a startup mode, you kind of rally whoever you can. You know, top talent. People start grabbing folks that they know of that make well. And I think it's come across where now it's foresight of mind of looking at diversity and making sure more of diversity of thought, more of diversity of experience. So whereas 20 years ago, I feel like I can see the shift. That those things are coming front in mind as you look at top talent, or if you look at talent for the right roles. And so I've seen it as what boards used to look at before, and now what boards look like. And you see a lot of diversity around the table, not only just women, but race, ethnicity, thought process, etc. Much more than I saw 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah,
20 years. Wow.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, although I still feel like there's too few of us when you get into sort of the C-suite or leadership. I think it's still a challenge. I think getting enough women and women from diverse backgrounds into those leadership roles. So I'm definitely seeing progress versus when I think back to when I first started my career in food and beverage. But I feel like we still have a long ways to go. But I think, to Debbie's point, there's more and more women that I think are really interested in this space. So I think we're starting to see more talent come into the space. So I think, I'm hopeful that we're able to, mentor and coach and bring more talent in so that we can, really change the face of leadership. And I really, I'm a big believer in you have to see it to be it, right? I mean, I think the more women, younger women see more senior women in these leadership roles in food and beverage, I think it's going to attract more to the industry. So I'm hoping that it's a positive circle that we keep building on.
Can I just mention one thing too? I mean, consider the source on this one, everyone. I come from the auto industry, which is easily one of the most male dominated and frankly, like macho and brutalist industries out there. I was almost always the only woman, if not one of very, very few in the room at every conference. I used to joke that one of the only nice things about being in the auto industry is when you go to conferences and auto shows and things like that, there's no line in the women's in the women's restroom. There's a line out the door for the men's room. And now, Impossible Foods is based really in the heart of Silicon Valley, which, as you also know, is very, very dominated by men. But Impossible Foods, like many other food companies, has a very different profile than the companies that surround us or that I've seen in my previous career. We have approaching 50% of our management is women, which is, if you compare that to any late stage biotechnology startup or Google or Facebook or any of the competitive set that we're trying to hire against, is absolutely a different world. Okay. So compared to the auto industry or finance or tech or any of these very classically male dominated industries, the food industry looks nothing like that, which is awesome. And which makes it really, really interesting place to work. So I think, we need to get 50%. We need total parity and gender equity. But, I also think we need to give ourselves credit for where we are, which is in a leadership role when it comes to involving women throughout management.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get to how we get that representation, I'm going to remind everyone, please stick your questions in the questions tab. We will be getting to them shortly. All right, so Karina, you mentioned mentors. And I think that's a huge piece to this puzzle, is the fact that if you want to be able to get into these positions, many women, are not, they don't have mentors, right? But in 60% of women in the professional space have never had a mentor before, which is just totally wild. Did any of you have any mentors coming up in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of mentors actually, and I still do. And I also spend a lot of time mentoring. So I think it's been critical for me throughout my career, and they haven't always been female mentors. Honestly, when I started my career, there weren't as many women, as I mentioned, in senior leadership roles. So a lot of my best mentors have been male mentors, which I think we need both. But I think having women mentors early on in my career was very, very beneficial. And I think as I've progressed in my career now, being involved in organizations that also provide peer-to-peer mentorship. So being part of Chief, being part of She Runs It, and other organizations that allow me to have a network of really smart women, who are doing really interesting things. And I think it comes back to what it creates for me, and I think for other women, is this opportunity to have that open mindset and to be ready to make a move when the right opportunity comes along. But the networking and the mentoring really allows you to get the benefit of that. So I'm a big proponent of mentoring, and I think you need lots of mentors as you go through, because what I find is every mentor I've had brings a slightly different perspective, especially if you pick them from different, places and spaces. It really allows you to develop as a leader. And I've had mentors who've been, instrumental in helping me find that next opportunity, or telling me about something I hadn't even thought about, or giving me feedback on improving some skills that I needed to. So I really think it's essential, and I'm pretty stunned by the statistic you just shared, because the thing I would, just encourage our audience to do, I often feel like younger women shy away from asking for mentors, and I'm always surprised by that, because I think most of us would say yes, right? I mean, we're able and willing and want to give women the opportunity wherever we can to build those networks. So I would definitely encourage. The value of mentoring is tremendous. It's been a huge force in my career for sure.
I think the thing for me is Karuna, as you mentioned, it's like mentors come in all different facets. So I've had mentors that have been, part of my company, as part of a program, and, look for them as more career path insights, etc. I've had mentors in my family, right, that have been entrepreneurs. And I feel like they come in and you see them in very different stages of your career. And to your point, Karuna, if you ask, granted, I feel like you will get, and it's being able to find, because people are willing to help, especially those that come asking for it. And especially if you know exactly what you want to get mentored on, you can actually help yourself by finding help pair up mentors that can help you in those areas. So I would encourage, similar to what Karuna said, is that a lot of it is also on us, and I've seen it help me in various career moves that I would make, personal and professional, opportunities. So definitely a great asset to have.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add, Rachel?
So I'm not at all surprised by the statistic that 60% of women don't have mentors. To be perfectly honest, I never had one growing up. I had a lot of friends. I had examples of people around me that I would look at and learn from. And I certainly have a large network of people, but I never had any official mentor, any sort of, person who I had a monthly session with or anything like that. I'm pretty much self-taught. I'm a first generation college graduate. And, one of the interesting things, though, from my perspective, I've had this incredible fortune of working for absolutely brilliant people. I mean, some of the most brilliant people living on the planet. And one of the things that my previous boss, Carlos Ghosn, said to me was, it's all well and good to look at people who are really successful and see them as a positive role model and as an example. But frankly, you learn a lot more from people who make mistakes and who are open with you about it. And so I have really tried as I get older in particular, to be a mentor to as many people who will have me as their mentor. And my attitude is, we could sit here and do like psychiatric tests, and I could talk to you about my, amazing career and illustrious leadership roles. But frankly, I'm going to talk to you more about where I've screwed up and what is painful for me and what I would have done differently and how my life might have looked had I made better choices at certain pivotal moments in my career. Because frankly, I think that's a lot more helpful. So I know I have several mentees on the call, and I give them a real full blast, I would say, of what's worked, what's not, the very specific challenges that I have faced as a woman, as a leader, because I want them to either not, to avoid that, to not have the same problems that I've had, or if they are going down that road, to realize they're not alone, that other people have gone before them or are doing things at the same time that have been equally difficult and fraught and just frustrating and angering. And, you get through it. That's my attitude.
Okay. So I just want to remind everyone, when all of these speakers are saying you just need to also reach out yourself, is a reminder as to why you should have your LinkedIn and all of your different handles in your profile right now, because you're in a room with hundreds of people from all across the industry, and they could be your next mentor, your next mentee. So it's really, really important that you are all updated and you are able to network. And the other thing that I think is really important, and something that you said, Debbie, is be specific. Be pointed and specific in your ask. And I think that you'll get a lot better response from folks, specifically folks that are very busy, if you have a specific ask for them. Okay, so the last question that I'm going to ask before we get to a couple specifics and audience questions is, how do you see us changing the visibility and representation of women in the space? What do you think is a good way for us to make sure that more women are getting into these roles? What would you like to see? Rachel, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, I absolutely love this question. I don't think that 5 years ago, when I first took the job at Impossible Foods, I would be sitting here today saying that, Impossible Foods is part of this Vegan Women Summit program to raise the profile of women leaders. I mean, things that are going on right now in the industry, we are at a really impressive, special moment in time. This is actually brand new. Jenny knows that this is a scoop. This will be announced tomorrow, but Impossible Foods is teaming up with Jenny and Vegan Women Summit to launch something called Women Building the Future. And it's an initiative where we are going to raise the profile of well-deserved women. And actually, it's children. It's anyone 13 years and above.
Tune it up. We want the Gen Z too.
Exactly. Who are doing amazing things in sustainability and agriculture, who are making a really big difference. Our entire company is really supporting of this program. It came out of our HR department, but obviously I'm in communications, and we are going to be having Pat Brown on a future summit to talk to people and to really encourage women. So it's not just for women in the industry; it's for everyone, to make this the most inclusive, most interesting, most diverse industry on the planet. This is going to come out tomorrow. You guys will see more about it. We're taking applications starting tomorrow for pioneering women in the industry. Please participate in that and spread the word. It's, again, something that I don't think that Jenny or I would have thought that this would be in our future, but things are changing really quickly. There's a huge appetite, quite literally, to have a future where the food industry is diverse and is sustainable and is inclusive. And let's accelerate that as fast as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Karuna, you've done similar work with the 3% initiative. Can you talk a little bit about your initiative there in the marketing space and anything you've learned there and how we could bring it to the food space?
Yeah. So 3%, for those of you who are not familiar, is an organization designed in the advertising and marketing space, where, one of the things that Kat Gordon, who was the founder, discovered about 10 years ago was that only 3% of senior female creative directors were women. And so there was a huge opportunity when, you think about the audience they're speaking to in advertising, and so few women were actually making it into leadership positions. So it was literally called the 3% Conference. It started out as a conference that drew attention to the issue. I sit on the advisory board of the 3% and got pretty involved when I joined the advertising industry. And one of the remarkable things is, by keeping a relentless focus on the data, on really measurement and really understanding that number, it's been so powerful. And just last year, we celebrated the fact that that number is now 29%. So we've made some significant progress in getting women into more senior leadership roles on the creative side. And it's really been driven by, like I said, you have to measure, you have to call it out when you see it, the good and the bad behavior. And, Kat and team are really great at doing that. You have to educate. She has this amazing conference every year where, the talent in the industry, the diverse talent, the incredible female diverse talent is highlighted and showcased. And it's a great opportunity. And it's one of the best conferences you can go to. And then, we've done a lot of work to really create allies. So, really helping educating, male allies in the industry to really understand what a difference it makes, how the work can be so much better, has been a really big part of it. And then celebrating the wins. So she's actually created, a whole system that an agency can go through that really certifies, how women are feeling at every level of the organization and how they can be advanced and what are the things that they're doing. And it's become a really powerful force in the industry. Still a long ways to go, but I think continuing to measure and see the progress is really encouraging. And more agencies have signed up to go through the process to really understand what are they doing right, what could they be doing better, and how can they promote more diverse female talent into their senior leadership. So, yeah, I think those are some things that we could easily reapply in this space. But I think, I love hearing Rachel's ambition coming into this, because I think that's what you need. You need to have a vision and an ambition that says where we are is not okay and we can do a lot better, and then measure it, and hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all about data at VWS. We did the world's first and only women founder survey last year, where we talked to 160 plus CEOs and founders in the plant-based space and collect data around their experiences. Nobody had ever reached out to them before. And for us to truly understand what is going on in the landscape, we have to take stories like today and turn it into data to make it actionable. All right, well, Rachel, I think we've got our work cut out for us. We can look at the 3% initiative for what we want to do with women building the future. Awesome. And Debbie, I'm curious in terms of, you coming from a much more traditional, bigger hierarchy. Are there any sorts of initiatives to promote women or get more representation that you've seen internally that have worked well?
Yeah, I think, there are obviously initiatives, and I think, more from a training. And again, I come from a big corporate background in terms of trainings and data, right? Data is always powerful. And I think, to your point, putting it front and center helps actually bring it front and center, right? In terms of the awareness. I think it also starts with leadership within as well. So in addition to what Rachel and Karina was saying, I think in terms of us being aware, you can see it through leading it with example, and everybody is a leader in their own space, in their own call it realm. And I think what I've seen more examples are bigger networking opportunities, right? So making sure that there are opportunities to network with women executives, with in all stages of the career, similar to this, right? And I think by fostering this network, you actually have an arsenal of talent that you can now tap into, right? And I think that's number one. I think number two is, for me, it's about, I think bringing your best foot forward, right? And I think you get more and more examples of these, and you're ready. You're always on. The folks that are women leaders that I've seen that have excelled are those that are always ready, and able and ready to take a bet on themselves, and whatever you need to do there to get mentally there, etc., are the ones that are jumping on the opportunity. They then put themselves exposure, whether they're communicating, networking, reaching out, etc. You never know where the next opportunity. I think that's what Rachel said. And I think for me, you see that in a fast-pacing, moving environment. I remember when Upfield was just starting, and when we realized, I think, at the same time COVID hit and people are unfortunately losing their jobs, I think at the same time, it was great to be in a company that was hiring, right? And I think that's by being in a company that's fast-moving, fast-paced, looking for talent, you want to be ready, right? And we go looking everywhere. We go looking within our networks. We go looking, searching LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. And so making yourself, I think that to me is making yourself available for opportunities like that are things within our own power to do.
Amazing. All right. So there's been some serious wisdom dropped today in today's conversation. And I see the Q&A is blowing up. What do you guys think? You guys want to go to Q&A?
Sure.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. We're going to try to get through as many questions as possible, of course. But let's start with, we got a lot of questions around mentorship. I think a lot of people we saw from the roles that folks registered with, a lot of people here are looking for mentors. Perhaps we will open this one up to anyone that wants to field it. But what would you find is the most effective way to find or ask for a mentor?
I think I touched on this before, and I've again come from a traditional large company that have mentorship program. What I've seen as moving on is going back to what I originally said, is knowing what you want to be mentored on actually helps others find you, or you find the right mentor. So whether it's a skill, whether it's a focus area, whether it's exposure into spaces that you have no exposure to, is it a cross-functional opportunity? I don't know, I want to switch careers, etc. I think being specific on what you want to get mentored on, and then being able to expose that, I think will help you find, either you or someone help you find the right match. And it'll change throughout your career depending on where you are. I think it's being specific on what you want to get out of it.
Can I just make one comment on this? I, again, totally self-taught. I have not had any formal mentors, and maybe that's truly my problem in life. I don't know. But I will say that, don't be too precious or official about what your mentor looks like. I mean, I'm a student of history. I'm a history major. In many ways, I find that some of the most interesting mentors in communications are people like Winston Churchill and Henry VIII and Barack Obama and people, Greta Thunberg, obviously right now I don't have any personal relationship with these people, some of whom are dead, but studying them and understanding how they made choices and made specific plans around communications has been really, really valuable to me. And likewise, my bosses, have been some of the most inspirational teachers. I can't officially call them mentors because I'm not in some mentor program with them, but they have been incredibly valuable to me. The other thing is use your friends, particularly as you get older. And I don't mean, the ripe old age of 50 like me, but younger in your career, as your friends are progressing too and going through various career phases and stages and exploring different industries, talk to them as well. In every single time I made a job move, two things happened. Number one, I called about 3 or 4 different people who I knew would have experience and help me guide me through this transition and say, yeah, good idea, thumbs up or thumbs down. But I got their feedback. The second thing that happened is every single time, virtually everyone, except for my husband, by the way, said, you are absolutely crazy to be doing this. So now my attitude is like, if people aren't telling me this is a crazy, crazy idea, this is an insane move, you're torching your career, Rachel, then I'm not going to do it.
Well, I mean, Korea, you're trying to explain to folks like, hey, this is a special fungi that's found in Yellowstone. I can only
I got a
imagine.
lot of that that
Yeah.
Rachel's talking about. But in my gut, I kind of knew it was the opportunity to go do something that was going to be life changing and planet changing. And so I knew I would regret it if I didn't at least go make a try of it. But I also wanted to pick up on one thing Rachel said, which I think we sometimes overlook, is your bosses. Your best bosses are going to be great mentors. And I'm always surprised by how few people really, nurture that relationship beyond sort of that time that they work for the individual. But I've found, in fact, I would say over half of my mentors are former bosses. And they go on to do many other things, but you have that connection with them and they know you and they can be huge advocates for you. And they can also help you in those, career transition moments. It's just like Rachel said, and I did call several of my bosses before I took this on this adventure, because they kind of have been with you. But I think don't underestimate the opportunity to keep that relationship going well past the point where you're actually working for that person, because often they are someone that, really knows you, has seen you grow in that role, and can continue to be a great mentor. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of my best mentors are former bosses from like years ago. But that's exactly right, Corinne. They've seen you when you were in more junior roles and seen you develop that career path and kind of like understand some of the nuances to your personality that perhaps some newer folks might not.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. This is a great question from Rachel. I love this. I'm a new mom. Are any of you moms? How did you think about your career and motherhood? I'll just put that out there.
So I am a mom of an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And so I think what I know is true. And again, my story is it takes a village to raise a kid at the same time. And I think for me, one of the things I was fortunate, and I know everyone comes from a different background, is I was fortunate to have support to help me, both from supporting me for my career ambition, but I was okay when I had my first kid to take a step back and understand what I want, right? And take the advice of some amazing women leaders to say, don't worry, this time will pass, and then your ambition will come back, et cetera, et cetera. And I think one of the things I realized very early on was just by nature of being ambitious, sometimes I didn't ask for help. And it was one of those things where after becoming a mom, I'll take anyone's help at this point. At different times, different places, et cetera. I think one of those things were just about, being clear, being support, have a supported network around me that allowed me to focus both on my career and being a mom, whether it's one and then the second, my second daughter, et cetera. But this COVID world changed a little bit of this. And I know a lot of folks around I would assume around the conference are feeling this at the same time, that this dynamic of being home and having to be both mom and career oriented, is a balance that we're all trying to learn as well.
Yeah.
Well said.
I also have 3 kids. Although they're all almost adults now, they're all adults, I guess. It's similar to Debbie. I mean, it's always been a balance and trying to figure it out. And what I think I would say is it would have been hard, I think, for me to do what I'm doing right now in the startup world. When I had, 3 kids under 6, that would have been very challenging. So there is a time and a chapter, I think, for when you feel ready. That doesn't mean it can't be done. I did not have a family network, nearby, and chose to spend some time being a full-time mom. I've kind of I've done full-time, part-time, stay-at-home mom, working mom, all of it. And it's all difficult in different ways. So I think it's just a matter of you have to choose what's right for you. At that time. Now I do have several women working for me here at Nature's Fine who are, moms with young children. And, I'm very empathetic to the situation that they're in. So I think if you find the right environment and the right culture, it can absolutely be done. But I'm with Debbie, take all the help you can get, because it's not easy. And, when you're getting those demands on both sides, it can become really challenging. But I think more and more companies are, open to being more flexible. I think we've all figured out, it's the good and the bad, right? You have the flexibility when you work at home, but it also means work never ends. So we're all trying to figure out that balance. But I do think I'm a big believer in that you can have it all, just not all at the same time. So you have to kind of figure out and make those trade-offs as you go. And maybe if, getting into a startup isn't the right thing for you right now, it might be a few years down the line. And I mean, I'm perfect evidence of you can do it very late in your career and still make a go of it. So I think it just depends on, what you're up for. But I think it can be done. I think it's tricky, but all of it is makes it more fun and more fulfilling when you have both sides of it.
I love that. Anything you want to add, Rachel?
Yeah, I would say, for the people in the audience who don't yet have children, who are thinking about it, don't presume anything about what your life and your career will look like post kids. I mean, I hear other people saying that, oh yeah, I had to throttle back, I took a year off, et cetera, et cetera. And that's absolutely fine. I really, I think that's a great option. I actually had the opposite reaction. When I had my first and then my second child, both boys, by the way, I felt like it was more imperative than ever to do something that matters. If I'm going to spend 30, 40, 50, 60 hours a week with the commute, with all of that kind of stuff, if I'm going to pay a nanny to help out, if I'm going to leverage my in-laws and relatives and everyone else to help raise this child, then it better be because I am doing something that is really going to make a dent in the universe, that is really going to put the entire species and our planet on the right trajectory. And man, my first kid, once he was born, I was like, that's when I got out of journalism. I was like, I'm not making enough impact in this career for him specifically, let alone for me. And that's when I moved over to, corporate communications internally at Tesla back in 2008, when no one had heard of Tesla or Elon and everyone thought I was crazy. But I realized that if we don't do something about this late stage global warming crisis, then we're all screwed. And what kind of planet am I giving to him? And then when I had my second, I was in Paris in this amazing Cush expat gig. He was 1 year old when I met Pat Brown, and I was like, oh my God, he's right. I can make a bigger impact if I go in the food sector. So I got to throw it all up in the air and move 6,000 miles away and get my other kid out of the school district and all that kind of stuff. So don't presume anything about, for those who don't have kids yet, like don't presume anything about what your career will look like. And definitely do not throttle back now in anticipation of how maybe you might need more bandwidth when you have kids, because your experience might be much more like mine and certainly very different than the one you've heard about from other people. It's very individual.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, and you don't know, you're right. I mean, I had no idea that I would want to make any of the choices that I've made over the years. So I think, give yourself, definitely don't throttle back. Yeah, I completely agree with that, because you just don't know what's around the corner or how you're going to feel when you are in that moment. And, we all change. And like I said, if anyone had said to me I was going to be working for a startup at this point in my career, I would have said, there's no way. And, here I am and I'm loving it. So I think it just, keep yourself open, I think, and keep yourself ready, I think are two great messages.
And by the way, for hiring managers who are in the audience, do not presume for 1 second that if you are getting in job candidates who are pregnant or who are in the age where they might, be getting, childbearing age, that kind of stuff, that somehow they might not be, destined for the rocket ship of success and all of that, because you would be shocked at the number of job applicants who we have at Impossible Foods, which is probably the most mission-driven company on the planet right now, who specifically say, I wasn't even thinking about this until I had kids. And then my whole relationship with my career changed. And suddenly the idea that I would be away from these precious beings, these most important people in my life, didn't distract me, didn't make me think, my job is unimportant. It was the opposite. It was suddenly I need to do something for these kids that will seriously improve their quality of life and the quality of life for every species on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, guys, that was like a mic drop. Honestly, I can see from everybody's thoughts coming through in the channel that this is really important stuff. It's really important stuff that doesn't really get talked about a lot. One thing that I did get a question on that I'd love to follow up quickly is comparing the opportunities for women in early stage and late stage startups. We've talked about a few of those things, but perhaps, Karuna, if there's any considerations that you would say women should think about in an early stage startup like you're in, and then Rachel or Debbie, anything you would say for kind of like a bigger company?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more risk, obviously, if you go into an early stage startup, right? So I think you have to go into it really thinking about your own risk reward portfolio and preference and what you're willing to do, because there's definitely more risk, and we all know the stats on startups, but I would say if you're going to do it, and this is one of the things I thought about, pick an industry that's got some momentum and growth to it, like the food business that we're all in, right? I mean, there's, I think that was one of the best pieces of advice I got is we often look at, what's the company, who am I going to be working for, which are really important. But man, if you pick the right industry where there's actually momentum and, there's excitement and investment. I mean, I spent many years in the agency world where every year was about cutting back, and being in a startup where it's about growth can be really, really invigorating. So, but it also comes with a pace and a level of risk. So I think that's more prevalent. But again, I don't think, I'm with Rachel. I don't think people should shy away from it. I think it's a fantastic experience. Being in that mode of, if you're a builder and if you love building things from the ground up and taking on that risk and the commensurate reward that comes with it, I think it's a great opportunity. You have to be ready for it. And you have to be willing to take that bet, because that's what you're doing, but you're betting on yourself. And I think that's what you have to remember is, if you feel like you've got the skill set and the resilience, which I think is one of the key qualities you really need to have is resilience. I feel like, in an early stage startup, like the time is compressed, right? I mean, what I've learned in 18 months is the equivalent of, it would have taken me 7 years elsewhere. So the learning curve is fantastic. So I think if you can ride the roller coaster and take the risk, I think an early stage startup is a great place to be. But I'm sure I hope it's a little calmer when you get to late stage, but we'll let Debbie and Rachel talk about that.
Yeah. Maybe Debbie, your thoughts, and then Rachel. I mean, there's a certain whisper about an IPO potentially happening at some point. And so obviously you are much more in a late stage. So would love your thoughts after. What IPO? Nobody said anything about that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like I would say the in between right now. So we are right now our first year up and running by ourselves. And Karuna, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the pace, when I interview candidates and when I talk to them, it's like you might not be cut out for it, but I think it depends, right? If you like stability, process, foundation, et cetera, then I think for me, it's, it's a startup, right? It's, you want to roll your hands, get dirty. You want end to end reach, in terms of some days you might be working on this and some days you might be working on that. You're not what I would say a specialist by any means. And I think that's where, we actually at Upfield, we say, are you a hunter, right? Like, are people seeking for growth opportunities? Are you high bias for actions? Insurgents is these words that again, it's the energy, it's the level, it's the fast pace. But, and I think there's certain people thrive in that, right? And so I think that's where we're in between right now. And again, it's those that enjoy the ride. The risk reward, the profile's there, but it's energizing, at least, to say the least.
Amazing. All right, Rachel, any last thoughts around late stage startup life?
I mean, honestly, I have a little bit of a different take on this one. I feel like everyone on this call is incredibly early stage startup. I mean, Impossible Foods is hardly a household name. We've only had a commercial product for 5 years. Yes, it's in 30,000 restaurants in the United States and more than 20,000 grocery stores, but that is a tiny, tiny fraction of what we have to do. We need to eliminate the need for the most destructive technology on the planet, and that is using animals to make meat. And currently, Impossible Foods is literally less. It's like 0.1% of total meat consumption in the United States. And it is trivially smaller, obviously, outside of the United States. So we are all in a very, very early stage. I kind of feel like, there's different kind of career trajectories and demands on your time and your bandwidth when it comes to whether you're at a Series A, B, C, D, E, F, G post IPO kind of scenario. But frankly, of disruption is still ahead of all of us in a big, big way. I mean, if you think that this is, even vaguely close to mature, then you are not seeing the scope of the ambition, at least at Impossible Foods. I mean, this is a company that seeks to eliminate the need for livestock entirely. And this is a company that aims to replace the means of production for a, $2 trillion industry. Where we are now is nothing compared to where we're going to be in 15 years.
Oh my gosh. I'm so amped. This is just, I could keep this conversation going for hours. I think our attendees could keep listening for hours, but I think we should wrap with one last question so that we can all meet attendees. Everyone's going to be hopping into live networking in a moment. The last question that I will put out to all of you, how about Karuna, we'll start with you, and then Debbie, and then Rachel. Rachel, give you a second to collect your thoughts. What is the number one piece of advice that you want to leave all of the attendees joining today with?
For me, it would be, don't hold yourself back. I think it's leaning in more because there's some great opportunities out there. And I think we, as women, we tend to want to be 100%, everything buttoned up and 100% qualified before we take that leap. And I think one of the things getting into the startup space has taught me is to be more willing to take the risk and not, waiting for everything to be perfect. Because sometimes you're going to jump in there and you're going to make it what it needs to be. You're going to create your own destiny. And so taking that risk and not waiting for everything to be completely buttoned up or feeling like you're 100% qualified, I think would be my one piece of advice.
Yeah, I would say bet on yourself, similar to, and be ready for those ops. So take all the opportunities you can get now, absorb whatever new, challenges come your way. To Rachel's point, learn from others' mistakes, etc. You never know when, I only realize this now, you connect all your dots later. So things that you got exposure to in various facets because you've made a decision on yourself and how it actually helps you 15, 20 years later. So bet on yourself that you're ready. And again, you'll enjoy the ride and you'll always find folks that can help, et cetera, through mentors and things that we've talked about today. But I would say for similar is bet on yourself.
I love it. Rachel, you've got the mic.
Yeah, I would say do something that matters. Matters for our species, matters for our planet. And that probably means do something to reverse global warming, do something to halt our catastrophic late stage extinction crisis, which if left unchecked, trust me, will also fray the web of life to such an extent that we Homo sapiens are even at risk, or deal with the hideous global public health problems that we're seeing, COVID being just the latest zoonotic pandemic, right? Or deal with the inequality issue, which is ravaging Homo sapiens themselves, right? Do something that really matters, because at the end of the day, we all have days or weeks or months that suck at work. We all have coworkers who we may not want to deal with. We all have difficulties. There might be personal, political, financial issues that you need to deal with. And then, of course, you're also trying to juggle it with your family and your personal needs. The thing that gets you through all of that, it's not the money. It's not the title, by the way. It's not whether you necessarily have the specific upward trajectory in your company that you want. It's about how much of an impact you are making on the planet. So always max that out, how much you are making an impact on the planet. And that's a combination of things. That is, number one is your ability to maneuver inside of the company. It's your ability to get things done in the company, and it's the company itself, and the funding and the resourcing and everything else. So always try to maximize that calculus as you go, and you'll be happy. And frankly, you'll also be richly rewarded in capitalist society as well. So do what matters for the planet.
Ladies, this has been an incredible conversation. There's a lot of themes we could pull out of this. I think always be ready is one that has come out of everyone's mouths. Perhaps that is going to be the name of our next event, because clearly there is opportunities out there. We're going to be jumping into networking next, and I am going to have to say a thank you and goodbye so all of these women can jump into networking to hopefully meet with all of you attendees. So thank you, everybody, for joining. I will see you in the networking room.
You.
All right.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you. See you soon. Okay. So I'm going to quickly go over how you're going to do the networking, because I know everybody's really excited to meet everyone that's in the room. So you're going to get flipped into a new room. So when you get into this new room, you're going to be in the networking lobby. There's going to be a button that says, "Get ready to network." When you hit that button, it is going to ask you to turn your camera and microphone on. So please say yes. And then you are going to live meet with one of the attendees that is in the room. You can also keep an eye on how long you're speaking to the attendee, because you're going to have 4 minutes. And then after 4 minutes, you are going to be cut off and sent to the next attendee, because the theme is speed networking. We want you to make lots of impactful connections throughout the conversations today. So please make sure that you are connecting with everyone you connect with. So when I say connect outside the platform, I mean take a look and see which handles are in their profile. You're going to see their LinkedIn, send them a connection request. Perhaps you'll see their Twitter or their Instagram. So please make sure you get their information before your 4 minutes is up. We will be bringing audience members up on stage later on. So about 15 minutes to the hour, we will all come back to the main stage, where I will bring up a few of you to talk about your experience today. So make sure that you stay for the full program, and hope to see you in networking. All right, everybody, I will see you there. Hey, everybody. Okay, we have you all back. Okay, I love these emojis. Every single time they get me super amped, and I can almost pretend like we're in real life all together. Okay, everyone's celebrating. Did you guys have the most amazing conversations? I want to hear a few of them, so I'm really excited. We're going to bring up a couple audience members. Maybe this will be your moment. Okay, let's bring up a couple audience members to hear a little bit about your thoughts on today's conversation and some of your favorite tips, tricks, lessons learned. All right, let's bring them up. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Okay.
Hi,
Anjali, hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. And Lizzie. Hello, Lizzie.
Hello.
Okay. And Natasha. Hello, Natasha. Welcome to the stage.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? Oh my gosh. What did you guys think of the event?
It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So great.
It was wonderful.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it
gosh.
was so fascinating for sure.
Oh, okay. So I want to hear a little bit about what each of you do right now. I'm curious, what brings you to VWS. Anjali, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I'm Anjali. I am in the initial stage of my career. I am working as a research and development intern for a plant-based food startup based out of Toronto. It's called Rainfed Foods, and we work on plant-based dairy alternatives. So this was the perfect platform to sort of be on. Well, yeah, I would like to know what the others over here are up to.
Yeah, I love this. We're just picking you out of the audience here, just plucking people up on stage. You never know who you're going to meet at VWS or where you're going to be. Natasha, welcome to the stage. Tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Kainova Bioworks. And what we do is we've developed a natural preservative extracted from the stems of white button mushrooms to improve the quality, freshness, and shelf life of various food and beverage brands. So we work with a lot of amazing brands within the food and beverage space across all different categories. So this is an amazing platform to come meet some of our customers and just connect with other vegan women. It's nice to be a part of this because I don't get to see a lot of women or be around a lot of women in the ingredient manufacturing space.
I bet. I can see you've got some like fans in the audience, some comments coming through. And Lizzie, hello. Where are you joining us from?
Hello. So I am a director of sales at Impossible Foods. I think we now know about Impossible Foods a bunch from Rachel. And so I've been with the company now for about 4 years, coming up on my 4-year anniversary, which is crazy. And my role on the sales team is that I run our distribution network as well as our broker network. So a lot of different things at Impossible Foods.
Okay, so Lizzie, you've got some fans in the audience too. You guys are all going to become like mini VWS celebrities. You're the chosen ones. Okay, so all right, so we've got California, we got Toronto. Where are you at, Natasha?
I'm in Toronto as well.
Okay, big Canadian presence here. Which is so funny because we started our first summit in San Francisco, but we've somehow amassed this huge like Canada footprint too. So I do believe Impossible is now in Canada now, right?
We are.
Awesome. Oh, okay, cool. So I'm curious, what did you guys enjoy most about the event? What do you think was the most interesting thing that was shared? Maybe Lizzie, we'll start with you.
Natasha, you just mentioned this, but seeing other women, like I'll admit, I think in startup world, you're just heads down, like blinders on to what you have to do day in, day out. And I think just literally taking a step back and meeting other people from other industries, seeing what people are doing is so fun. It's also so cool to see what the space has really grown into. 4 years ago, a lot of at least the plant-based meat space was not really in existence to a large degree. And now seeing all of these companies coming out, all of these different varieties of companies, it's been really inspiring just to meet people around the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Natasha, from a founder perspective, there's a lot of talk about, women in startups. Were you feeling some of that? Were you like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what it feels like?
Yes, I really resonated with Rachel actually during the session on her thoughts on mentorship. So personally, again, coming from food ingredient manufacturing space and what she was talking about being self-taught and not having a lot of women role models or mentors around you, totally understand that so much. I'm completely self-taught. Google was like my best friend when I first started the company. Honestly, it's been like the most valuable asset. Anytime I didn't have an answer to a question, I would like read these intense Reddit threads and Google questions. So I thought that was really, really helpful. And then just getting their advice and guidance on, taking the opportunities when they present themselves to you. I never thought I would end up here as a founder of a startup company in such an intensive field or category. So that has been really valuable insight for me to learn.
Yeah. And Anjali, you're a student. I imagine this was like, you had some seasoned veterans that were throwing some like real facts at you. What did you think? Was it overwhelming? Was it exciting? Are you like, that's going to be me?
Yeah, well, for sure it was exciting. I was sort of taking down notes. I think there are a lot of people like me in the audience who would resonate with the fact that when you're yourself looking for your first full-time opportunity in this space, it's so important to understand all the nuances of the space. I think for me, the most fascinating part was the idea of mentorship. I've been questioning that idea for a long time. And luckily, over the past few months, I've found some good mentors that I'm now engaging with quite frequently. So I love Karuna's take on how it's important to sort of build that bond with your bosses. And that's ideally what I'm doing with my startup founder as well. And she's been super supportive. So overall, this was an array of insights. Plus, the fact that I really liked was that the panel was so diverse. Growing up, like, I don't think I've seen so many women of the Southeast Asian community representing themselves on such platforms. And that, for me, was really inspiring. So overall, a fantastic experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's representation, right? There's just such a huge opportunity for women to be represented in this space. And why not this space? We're growing it. We're literally like, we're building the ship and we're sailing it all at the same time. So why not jump on this opportunity? I'm so excited. I love some of the insights that were shared. What do you think is the best piece of advice that you'll take from today's conversation? I see Lizzie's thinking. Okay, so maybe we'll give her a break real quick. Maybe Natasha?
Sure. I think something that really hit me was when Rachel said, do something that matters, do something that has an impact. Whatever it is, it may be small, it may be big, but just do something that has some kind of impact. And so for me at Kainova, my personal mission was to hire people that look like me, hire women, and put them in executive roles or leadership positions. So as we continue to grow our company, that's something that I always want to do. I want to inspire my employees. I want to inspire my team and people who surround me, because when you see people like you in these roles and you have that representation, then you feel more confident and you feel more inspired to believe in yourself and feel like you can actually get there. So I'm just proud to say, you know, we have been doing that at Kainova. And so right now we have a team that's 90% of women in STEM. And so just creating that impact is just, it's such a great key thing that I took away from this conversation.
I love that. Lizzie, what do you think?
I know. I mean, I think it's certainly continuing to work on mentorship opportunities, not only, you know, working with your boss. I think that was such a great piece of advice from Rachel. But also friends. I mean, friends can be such a wonderful advocate, can also tell you when you are, you know, doing something crazy. Usually they're going to be the ones that can kind of tell you first. And I think it's also a good nod to also, you know, take those opportunities if you are establishing your career to mentor other women, whether they be in your own company or elsewhere. So I think mentorship as a whole is definitely something that I'm taking away.
Yeah, absolutely. Anjali?
Well, I heard somebody say that always be ready. I think that was really interesting because as an intern, I've been doing various roles within the startup and outside. I've been volunteering for various organizations and platforms. And I've realized I've always said yes. And that's made a difference because I've learned so many new things. So for me, that was really fascinating to hear from a person who is in a leadership position. It was inspiring because I'd like to see myself there someday. So for sure, I'm going to take that advice back with me.
That's amazing. Well, I'm glad you all were joining us today. Did anyone realize we had a community this big?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
yeah. I cannot wait to reach out to a lot of these people on LinkedIn and sort of get to connect with them one-on-one to see what they are up to and what's happening in the space all across the world.
And they're so supportive. Like even just now, the chat, it's just so supportive.
Yeah, that's what we're building, right? That's the community that we're building. And I'm going to remind everyone that I think we probably met a few women today that should sign up and do our women's nomination campaign. We are going to be elevating women all around the world that are doing awesome things. So please check that out. You'll also get an email about it tomorrow. It's going to be a global campaign. I think a few conversations today have really seeded some big things to come out of it. So I hope everybody enjoyed today's conversation. You can continue to connect with us on all platforms. So we're at Vegan Women's Summit. And of course, we've got Anjali and Natasha and Lizzie up here. Have you connected with them? Did you hit that little LinkedIn button? Did you hit my LinkedIn button? Because we want to make sure that we take this conversation off of the platform today so that we have lifelong connections so we can build this amazing global community. Cool. Well, I will see everybody at the next event. Thank you, Lizzie, Anjali, Natasha, for coming up here. It has been a pleasure to have you. And thank you to our speakers and Impossible Foods for joining today. All right, everybody, I guess we got to get back to work, huh?
Wonderful. Okay. Thanks, Jenny.
Perfect.
Let's go build a plant-based world.